History books often credit the Romans with our greatest inventions, but that story is wrong. Long before their empire, 21 forgotten inventors gave us the wheel, writing, and the first cities. By the end of this journey, you will know the true origins of civilization and see ancient history in a completely new light. Who were the brilliant minds that built the world's first temple complex with only stone tools? How did a single scribe unlock the power of the written word? Are you ready to meet the ghosts behind our modern world? Centuries before Rome laid its first stone, a world of astonishing innovation was already in full swing. Think of bustling city streets in Mesopotamia, where merchants traded goods from distant lands, or the meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley, with their advanced water management systems. This was not a dark age waiting for a single empire to enlighten it. It was a vibrant tapestry of cultures, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the dynasties of China, all connected by sprawling trade routes that carried not just spices and silks, but ideas. In this era, the drive to build, to create, and to solve problems was relentless. People were mastering metal, learning to alloy copper and tin to forge the stronger, more versatile bronze that would redefine tools and warfare. They were organizing into complex societies with laws, specialized jobs, and grand architectural ambitions. The inventions that emerged from this period were not usually the product of lone geniuses in isolated contemplation. They were born from the pressing needs of the moment. How do you record a business transaction when your memory fails? How do you transport heavy goods across great distances without breaking your back? How do you build a structure that touches the sky to honor the gods? The answers to these everyday challenges came from the brilliant minds we have forgotten, the true architects of our modern world whose stories we are just beginning to tell. So what does it mean to be forgotten? It is a quiet kind of vanishing. The wheel still turns, the written word still communicates, but the name of the person who first shaped the idea is gone. Their identity was often erased by the very success of their creation. Later civilizations like the Greeks and Romans would encounter these revolutionary technologies and, in retelling their histories, would credit their own gods, their own kings, or their own mythical heroes. The true origin story was smoothed over, repackaged for a new audience. In other cases, the invention was not the work of a single eureka, a moment, but a slow, communal project refined over centuries, making it impossible to credit one person. Their story was lost to time as empires crumbled, languages fell silent, and clay tablets were buried under the dust of millennia. To understand this process of historical erasure is to understand why reclaiming even one of these names is so profoundly important. It is about restoring a face to a foundation we all stand upon. With that in mind, let us turn to the very beginning of our list and meet the master builder behind humanity's first great architectural wonder. Our story starts with a mystery carved from stone, high on a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey. Here, over 11,000 years ago, a visionary conceived a plan so ambitious it would have seemed impossible. This was the unknown architect of Göbekli Tepe. The scale of their ambition is staggering. They directed the quarrying, transport, and erection of massive limestone pillars, each one weighing many tons. These were not just crude blocks of stone. They were shaped into distinct T-forms and covered with elaborate carvings of animals, from foxes and scorpions to swooping birds. These pillars were then arranged into great circular enclosures, sunk into the earth, creating the world's first known temple complex. Now consider the context. This was not the work of a mighty pharaoh commanding a kingdom of farmers. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers. They lived a nomadic life, following herds of animals and foraging for wild plants. They had not yet invented agriculture, pottery, or metal tools. They had not even established permanent villages. So how did they do it? How did someone convince, organize, and sustain a large labor force to undertake a project that would take generations, using nothing but stone tools and human muscle? This anonymous genius possessed a revolutionary skill, the ability to orchestrate a long-term vision. They had to manage teams of quarry workers, sculptors, and haulers. They needed to solve complex logistical puzzles, like how to move a 20-ton pillar for hundreds of meters and then stand it upright. Their understanding went beyond engineering. The precise alignment of some of these enclosures suggests a deep knowledge of the stars, a celestial calendar carved into the landscape. This individual did not just build a structure. They built a new idea of what human beings could accomplish together. They proved that society, religion, and monumental art could come before cities and farms, flipping our entire understanding of human progress on its head. The identity of this master planner is lost, but their legacy stands as a silent challenge, a testament to a forgotten genius who saw a cathedral on an empty hill. That simple, elegant circle carved from wood would one day conquer the world, but its origin story belongs to a single, unnamed mind in ancient Mesopotamia, a creative soul who first paired a rotating axle with a solid circular platform around 3,500 years before the Common Era. This was not merely a new tool, it was a fundamental rethinking of motion itself. Picture the problem of moving a heavy load. Dragging it creates immense friction, it is slow, it damages the goods, and it exhausts the people or animals pulling it. This unknown artisan solved all of that in one brilliant design. They realized that by concentrating the load on a fixed axle and allowing a wheel to spin freely around it, they could replace the grinding resistance of dragging with the smooth, rolling resistance of rotation. This principle of managing friction and distributing weight is so foundational that it still underpins every vehicle on the road today. Initially, this invention was used for a quieter purpose, the potter's wheel, which allowed for the faster, more symmetrical creation of ceramic vessels. But the application to transport was inevitable and transformative. Almost overnight, the chariot was born, changing the very nature of warfare and hunting with unprecedented speed and mobility. The cart revolutionized trade, enabling merchants to move goods in volumes and over distances that were previously unimaginable. This did not just make life more convenient, it shrank the ancient world. Cultures and economies that were once isolated could now connect, exchange ideas, and build upon one another's knowledge. The Mesopotamian wheelwright did not just invent an object, they invented momentum, setting civilization on a faster, more interconnected path. And just as this invention gave physical motion to our world, another was needed to capture the motion of the human mind, to give our thoughts a voice that could travel across generations. But that wheel, for all its power, could not carry a story or a law. It could transport goods, but not a king's decree or a merchant's contract. For that, another kind of breakthrough was needed, one that would capture the human voice itself. In the sun-baked city of Uruk, a brilliant but nameless scribe picked up a sharp reed and a lump of wet clay. With simple, deliberate presses, they created a series of wedge-shaped marks. This was the birth of cuneiform, one of the world's first systems of writing. It was a revolution carved in mud. Before this moment, knowledge was fleeting. A story told by an elder could be forgotten, a trade agreement could be disputed, a complex set of laws could be misremembered. This single scribe changed all of that forever. They transformed human communication from a purely oral, transient event into a permanent, tangible record. Suddenly, a thought could be captured and could travel across vast distances and through generations unchanged. This was not just about recording poetry or myths, though it did that beautifully, giving us the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was the invention of memory on a societal scale. This scribe laid the bedrock for all bureaucracy, enabling the meticulous tracking of grain stores, the census of populations, and the codification of legal codes. They unlocked the written word, the primary engine of all cultural and intellectual progress that would follow. And as cities grew and their records became more complex, so too did the need to sustain these bustling populations, leading to another monumental leap in how humanity shaped the very land itself. That written word, those permanent records, now demanded a stable and abundant food supply to sustain the scribes and the city they served. In the sun-scorched plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a different kind of visionary looked at the dry, cracked earth and saw not a barrier but a promise. This was the Sumerian agriculturalist who engineered the first large-scale irrigation system. The challenge was absolute. The land was fertile, but rainfall was scarce and unpredictable. Crops would wither and die, and with them, the dreams of a growing civilization. Our unknown farmer saw a solution in the powerful rivers flowing nearby. The idea was simple in concept but staggering in its execution. They designed a network of canals and ditches to divert river water across vast distances, bringing life-giving moisture directly to the fields. This was not just digging a single trench. It required a profound understanding of the land's gentle slopes, of how water naturally flows and seeks its own level. They had to calculate gradients and construct channels that would deliver water efficiently without causing destructive erosion or flooding the very crops they were trying to save. It was hydraulic engineering on a grand scale, executed with nothing more than shovels, baskets, and human determination. The impact was nothing short of a revolution. For the first time, farming was no longer a gamble on the weather. It became a controlled, reliable process. This systematic irrigation produced massive food surpluses, meaning not everyone had to toil in the fields. This abundance freed people to become artisans, priests, soldiers, and yes, scribes. It allowed populations to concentrate, directly fueling the rise of the first great cities. This forgotten genius did not just water crops, they cultivated civilization itself, turning a desert into an empire's breadbasket. Our next inventor tackled a challenge of a much smaller scale, but with consequences that were just as immense. That same fire used for warmth and cooking held a secret for thousands of years. One day, a curious artisan, perhaps in the Balkans or the Middle East around 5,000 years before the Common Era, noticed something strange. A certain green stone, malachite, left near a particularly hot fire began to weep a shimmering, liquid bead. Instead of shattering like other rocks, it transformed. This was the moment of discovery, the first deliberate smelting of copper. This anonymous metallurgist had unlocked a power previously unknown to humanity, the ability to draw metal directly from stone. They realized that intense, controlled heat could separate the pure, malleable copper from the ore that imprisoned it. This was not just a new way to make a tool, it was the birth of an entire science, metallurgy, and it launched humanity out of the Stone Age and into the Metal Ages. The impact was immediate and profound. For the first time, people were not just shaping materials they found, they were creating an entirely new substance. Copper was superior to stone in almost every way. It could be hammered into sharp, durable blades that could be resharpened, not just discarded when they chipped. It could be cast into intricate ornaments and jewelry, symbols of status and beauty. This technological leap improved efficiency in every aspect of life. A farmer with a copper sickle could harvest grain far more quickly. A woodworker with a copper axe could fell trees and shape timber for buildings with unprecedented speed. This single discovery set the stage for everything that followed, as later generations learned to alloy copper with tin to create the even stronger bronze, and eventually to master the smelting of iron. The legacy of this first, forgotten experimenter is found in every metal object we use today, from the smallest key to the tallest skyscraper. They pulled the very first metal from the earth, setting civilization on a new, unbreakable course. And just as they unlocked a new world of material substance, another inventor sought to chart the world itself for a journey beyond life. A vessel gliding across the water, powered not by straining muscles but by the invisible force of the wind, must have seemed like pure magic. This was the gift of the forgotten maritime engineer who first conceived the sailing ship. Long before the Phoenicians dominated the Mediterranean, an anonymous shipwright, perhaps gazing at the reeds along the Nile or the waters of the Persian Gulf, had a revolutionary thought. They realized that a woven fabric sheet, raised high on a mast and secured to a carefully shaped wooden hull, could capture the wind and turn it into forward motion. This was a complete reinvention of travel. Before this, boats were limited. They were dugout canoes or rafts, dependent on paddles or oars, suitable for rivers and coastlines but utterly vulnerable on the open sea. The invention of the sail changed everything. It meant that a single ship could now carry people and heavy cargo, like timber, grain, or precious stones, across vast distances without exhausting its crew. It was the birth of true maritime trade routes. Suddenly, the cultures of Egypt and Mesopotamia were no longer isolated. They could be connected by ships that sailed the length of the Red Sea and beyond, exchanging not only goods but also ideas, religious beliefs, and technologies. This shipwright's courage to trust the wind and their ingenuity in designing a hull that could withstand its power opened up the entire planet for exploration. Every clipper ship, every frigate, every modern container ship owes its existence to that first, bold design. This new connectivity, however, created a new kind of problem. With goods and ideas flowing across such vast distances, how could anyone keep track of it all? This growing chaos demanded a new system of order. That growing chaos of trade and travel demanded a new kind of order, a language not of words but of numbers. In the heart of ancient Babylon, a brilliant but nameless mathematician provided the answer, devising a numerical system of such elegant sophistication that its fingerprints are still on our clocks and maps today. This was the invention of the base 60 system known as sexagesimal. While other cultures were counting in simple tens, this thinker saw a different pattern. They built a system around the number 60, a value chosen for its remarkable divisibility. 60 can be divided evenly by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. This made complex calculations, especially the fractions essential for astronomy and land surveying, dramatically simpler. The legacy of this Babylonian genius is etched into the very fabric of our daily lives. Every time you check the clock, you are using their system. The 60 seconds in a minute and the 60 minutes in an hour are a direct gift from this ancient mind. When a navigator plots a course across the ocean, they use the 360 degrees of a circle, another product of this base 60 framework. This was not just a counting method, it was a powerful intellectual tool that enabled breathtaking advances. Babylonian astronomers used it to track the paths of planets with stunning accuracy. Their geometric calculations, used for constructing temples and dividing fields, became far more precise. This mathematical backbone supported the architectural wonders and mercantile empires that followed. We do not know their name, but every time the minute hand moves, we are witnessing the silent, enduring power of their forgotten idea. That quest for eternal life, a dream of immortality, led to a discovery that would shake the world. In the smoky workshop of a Chinese alchemist, perhaps during the Tang dynasty, an unknown experimenter was not trying to build a weapon. They were trying to cheat death itself, meticulously mixing minerals and herbs in a search for the fabled elixir of life. Their ingredients of choice were common in such pursuits: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. They heated this mixture, perhaps in a crucible over a hot flame, expecting a transformative reaction. What they got was something entirely different: a sudden, violent flash, a puff of thick smoke, and a loud crack that must have echoed through their workshop like a clap of thunder. They had not found immortality. Instead, they had accidentally created the world's first chemical explosive, the primitive ancestor of gunpowder. For centuries, this discovery remained a curious novelty, a formula recorded in alchemical texts as a warning or a mere spectacle. Its first uses were not for destruction but for celebration, giving birth to the brilliant, colorful displays of fireworks that lit up the night sky during festivals. It was only much later that military engineers saw its potential to propel projectiles and break down fortress walls, forever changing the nature of warfare and conquest. This forgotten alchemist's legacy is a powerful reminder that the path of innovation is rarely a straight line. The most earth-shattering discoveries can emerge from the ashes of a failed experiment, a fortunate accident born from a search for something else entirely. This explosive mixture gave humanity a terrifying new kind of force, but our next inventor sought to harness a different power, the power to see the unseen and navigate the vast, empty expanse of the open sea. Deep within the royal archives of Nimrud, a single piece of polished rock crystal tells a story of astonishing foresight. This small, oval lens, carefully ground around 750 years before the Common Era, is the work of a forgotten Mesopotamian optician. While others were building empires, this anonymous scientist was exploring the fundamental properties of light itself. They had mastered the art of shaping crystal to a precise curvature, creating a lens that could bend light rays, a principle we now call refraction. We cannot know for certain its first purpose. Perhaps it was a burning glass used to concentrate the sun's rays into a pinprick of intense heat to start a fire. Or maybe it was a simple magnifier held by a master scribe or artisan to inspect the finest details of a cuneiform character or an intricate piece of jewelry. This was more than a clever trinket, it was the seed of a scientific revolution. This individual's understanding of optics laid the foundation for everything that followed. Without that first lens, there would be no eyeglasses to correct vision, no telescopes for Galileo to turn toward the moons of Jupiter, and no microscopes for scientists to discover the hidden world of cells and bacteria. This forgotten genius gave us a new way of seeing, allowing humanity to focus on the stars above and the building blocks of life below. From the manipulation of light, we turn to a different kind of mastery, the art of preserving life itself through medicine. The streets of Mohenjo-Daro were laid out with a precision that feels almost modern. While empires rose and fell elsewhere, an anonymous Indus Valley urban planner was drafting a blueprint for civilized life. This forgotten architect did not just build a city, they engineered an entire urban philosophy. Their most visible legacy is the world's first grid-based street system. Instead of the winding, chaotic alleys common in other ancient towns, the planner designed wide, straight thoroughfares that intersected at perfect right angles. This was not merely for aesthetics. This orderly grid allowed for efficient traffic flow, simplified the layout of neighborhoods, and made the entire city easier to navigate and administer. But their genius ran much deeper, literally beneath the surface. They designed an extensive city-wide drainage network that was nothing short of revolutionary. Each house was connected to a covered central sewer system that ran under the main streets. These drains were equipped with inspection holes for maintenance, allowing waste to flow out of the city and keeping the living spaces clean and hygienic. This master planner also ensured a reliable water supply, with numerous public wells positioned strategically throughout the residential blocks, providing fresh water just steps from every doorstep. They even standardized the size of baked bricks used in construction, a move that streamlined building processes and ensured uniformity and quality across the entire metropolis. This individual understood that a city's health depended on the invisible systems that managed water and waste. The quality of life in Mohenjo-Daro, with its advanced public sanitation and orderly layout, would not be matched in Europe for thousands of years. Their work represents a peak of urban civilization, a testament to a mind that saw the city as a single, living organism to be nurtured. As this planner looked down to design the perfect city, another ancient genius was looking up, creating a tool to record the perfect motions of the heavens. Buried in a German forest for 36 centuries, a bronze disc tells a story of cosmic genius. This is the Nebra sky disk, the oldest known portable instrument for astronomy, and its creator remains a ghost. Crafted around 1,600 years before the Common Era, this was not a simple decoration. An unknown astronomer working in the heart of prehistoric Europe hammered a bronze disc and inlaid it with golden symbols representing the sun, a crescent moon, and a precise cluster of stars we know as the Pleiades. But what was its purpose? This individual had built a complex calculator, a mechanical mind designed to solve one of humanity's oldest puzzles, the mismatch between the lunar and solar calendars. A lunar year, based on the phases of the moon, is shorter than a solar year, the time it takes for the Earth to orbit the sun. This discrepancy might seem small, but over just a few years, the seasons would drift completely out of alignment with the calendar. Our forgotten astronomer used the disk to track these cycles and synchronize them. By observing the sky and adjusting the calendar using the disk's golden markers, they could predict the correct time to plant crops and when to hold vital religious ceremonies tied to the solstices. This required a profound, long-term understanding of cosmic patterns, a knowledge of the heavens so advanced it was thought impossible for Europe at that time. They were not just a stargazer, they were a master metallurgist, expertly working with bronze and gold to create a durable scientific tool that could withstand the elements. The Nebra sky disk stands as silent, stunning proof that sophisticated astronomy flourished far from Egypt and Mesopotamia, a testament to a lone European mind who looked to the stars and saw a clockwork universe. High in the Andes Mountains, a different kind of language was being tied, one that spoke through the hands as much as the eyes. A Peruvian administrator, whose name is lost to the thin mountain air, confronted the immense challenge of governing a vast territory without a single written word. Their solution was both beautiful and brilliant: the Quipu, a device made of colored cords hung from a main string, each one intricately knotted. This was not mere string. It was a sophisticated data storage system, a three-dimensional library of an empire's memory. The genius of this unknown inventor lay in the code they developed. They used different types of knots to represent numerical values, with the position of a knot on a cord indicating its place value, from units to hundreds. A figure 8 knot was not the same as a long knot, and each conveyed specific information. But the system went far beyond simple accounting. The colors of the cords held meaning, perhaps signifying different commodities like corn or textiles, or even different regions of the empire. Some researchers believe complex quipus could record narratives, laws, and historical chronicles, turning a bundle of strings into a tactile epic poem. This was a binary language of information, built on the presence or absence of knots, their type, and their sequence. Long before the digital age, the Quipu master created a portable, durable, and incredibly efficient tool that allowed the Inca to manage their economy, conduct censuses, and coordinate their sprawling realm. It stands as a powerful reminder that the path to complex civilization did not have to be written on clay or papyrus. It could be woven, knotted, and carried across the greatest mountain range on Earth, a testament to a unique form of genius that found a way to make strings speak. That same need for a portable record, for a letter that could be carried across deserts and seas, found its perfect solution not in stone or clay, but in the reeds growing along the Nile. While the scribes of Mesopotamia were etching their thoughts into heavy tablets, an anonymous Egyptian artisan looked at the tall, triangular papyrus plant and saw a revolution. Their genius was not in inventing writing, but in reinventing the very page it was written on. They developed a meticulous, multi-step process that transformed a humble reed into a technological marvel. First, they would slice the soft, white pith from the stalk into thin, vertical strips. These strips were then laid side by side on a hard surface, forming one layer. A second layer of strips was placed directly on top, but this time running horizontally, creating a crosswise pattern. This sheet was then soaked in the water of the Nile, which activated the plant's natural starches. Finally, it was pressed, pounded, and left to dry in the sun, the layers fusing into a single, incredibly strong yet remarkably flexible sheet. The result was papyrus paper. It was a surface that was smooth and absorbent, perfect for the quick strokes of a reed pen and ink. Unlike a heavy clay tablet that could shatter, it was lightweight and could be rolled into a compact scroll. Unlike a slab of stone, it was relatively cheap and easy to produce in large quantities. This was the moment information was set free. Papyrus paper democratized knowledge. It was no longer the exclusive domain of palace scribes etching royal decrees. Now, a merchant could keep his accounts, a poet could draft a love poem, and a student could copy a text. Literature, scientific observations, administrative records, and personal letters could now travel. The thoughts of an Egyptian official could be read by an administrator in a distant province, creating a cohesive, manageable empire. The great works of antiquity, from epic tales to medical texts, were preserved for thousands of years because of this durable, portable medium. This forgotten artisan did not just make paper, they built the very bloodstream of civilization, a network of lightweight scrolls that carried the pulse of ideas across the ancient world. Numbers swirled through the air of the marketplace, a dizzying torrent of prices, debts, and taxes. In the midst of this numerical chaos, a single Mesopotamian accountant found a way to bring order. Their solution was not a new set of symbols, but a physical machine for thought, the world's first abacus. Picture a simple wooden frame, but one divided into columns, each representing a different place value, from units to tens to hundreds. Onto these columns they slid beads or stones, each movement a deliberate act of calculation. This was not just a counting aid, it was the birth of data processing. With this device, a merchant could tally a complex shipment of goods in minutes instead of hours. A tax collector could accurately sum the grain owed from an entire district without losing his place. An architect could compute the number of bricks needed for a new ziggurat, his fingers flying across the beads to handle multiplications that would strain the mind alone. The abacus made mathematics tangible. It externalized the abstract process of calculation. turning it into a visible, physical ritual that minimized human error. This standardization of computation was as vital as the standardization of weights and measures. It meant that every merchant in the city, every official in the palace, was working from the same, reliable numerical foundation. This forgotten accountant's invention became the indispensable engine of the ancient economy, a tool for building not just fortunes, but empires. And just as this genius gave the world a new standard for calculation, another sought to define a standard for beauty itself, carving perfection from the hardest of stones. That same quest for cleanliness, for purifying the very fibers of daily life, led to a chemical breakthrough in a Babylonian workshop. An unnamed artisan, working nearly 5,000 years ago, was likely trying to solve a practical problem, perhaps removing grease and dirt from wool to produce finer textiles. Their materials were simple and readily available, animal fats and the ashes from a fire. But their process was revolutionary. They discovered that by boiling these fats with those alkaline ashes, they triggered a chemical reaction we now call saponification. The fats broke down, their molecules rearranging to form a new substance that was both hydrophilic and hydrophobic, meaning one part of the molecule loved water while the other part repelled it and clung to grease. This is the fundamental principle of all soap. When you wash, the soap molecules surround specks of dirt and oil, forming structures called micelles that are then easily rinsed away with water. This Babylonian creator had unlocked this power entirely through observation and experimentation. Their initial recipe, an inscription tells us, was specifically for scrubbing wool and cloth, leading to cleaner, higher quality textiles that were softer and more vibrant. But the implications for human health were staggering, even if they were not fully understood at the time. This simple bar of soap became a silent, potent weapon against countless diseases. By washing away the grime that harbored bacteria and viruses, communities that adopted soap saw their overall health improve dramatically. They were fighting microscopic enemies they could not see, armed only with the chemical genius of a forgotten artisan who mixed ashes and fat in a pot. This desire for purity extended beyond the body, into the very bones of a city where another inventor was engineering a different kind of cleanliness. A deep, resonant rumble is one of the most primal fears, a sudden tear in the very ground beneath your feet. But what if you could know it was coming? In 132 of the Common Era, the Chinese polymath Zhang Heng presented the Han court with an object of breathtaking genius, the world's first seismoscope. Yet the core idea, the fundamental principle of detecting a distant earthquake, almost certainly belonged to an earlier, anonymous mind. Zhang Heng's device was a masterpiece of refinement, a bronze urn adorned with 8 dragon heads, each holding a bronze ball. Inside, an ingenious inverted pendulum was delicately balanced. When seismic waves from a quake hundreds of miles away traveled through the earth, they would jolt the urn. The pendulum would swing, striking a mechanism that would release just one ball from a dragon's mouth into the waiting mouth of a bronze frog below. The direction of the fallen ball pointed unerringly toward the epicenter of the disaster. This was not magic, it was sophisticated mechanical engineering and an intuitive grasp of geophysics. It demonstrated a profound shift in thinking. Instead of simply reacting to a catastrophe after it happened, this unknown inventor and their successor, Zhang Heng, sought to understand it, to measure it, to get a warning. They were building a proactive relationship with a violent planet. This was an early warning system born from brilliant observation, a device that listened to the whispers of the Earth itself and translated them into a life-saving signal. This quest to build a safer world would soon demand another kind of foresight, one that could measure the passage of time itself. A forgotten kitchen accident in the Zagros Mountains may have given humanity its first taste of something more than mere survival. An observant soul, perhaps a gatherer or an early farmer, noticed that a forgotten pot of soaked grains or a basket of overripe fruit had begun to behave strangely. It was bubbling, releasing a sharp, yeasty aroma and producing a liquid that, when tasted, had a peculiar and pleasant effect. This was not poison, but a transformation. This individual was the world's first brewer, and they did something extraordinary. Instead of discarding the spoiled food, they studied it. They began to replicate the conditions, learning through trial and error how to control this wild process of fermentation. They discovered that by mixing crushed grains with water and leaving the mixture in a warm place, they could reliably produce a primitive beer. In other regions, the same discovery was made with honey to create mead or with grapes to create wine. This was humanity's first foray into biotechnology, the intentional harnessing of microscopic life to create a new product. The impact was immense. In a world where water sources were often contaminated, these fermented drinks provided a safe, sterile source of hydration, as the alcohol content killed harmful bacteria. They were also a vital source of calories and nutrients, a thick, porridge-like beer supplementing the daily diet. But beyond mere sustenance, this invention brewed culture itself. These beverages quickly became central to social and religious life. They were offered to the gods in elaborate rituals, used to seal business deals and treaties, and consumed during community festivals, lowering inhibitions and strengthening social bonds. This forgotten innovator did not just make a drink, they sparked a social catalyst that would flow through every civilization to come, turning simple gatherings into celebrations and quenching a thirst for community as much as for liquid. A merchant in the ancient kingdom of Lydia faced a problem we would all recognize today. Their marketplace was a cacophony of haggling, a slow and frustrating dance of barter where the value of everything was endlessly debated. How many sheep equaled a bronze cauldron? Was a sack of grain a fair trade for a length of linen? The system was slow, inefficient, and ripe with distrust. Then an anonymous figure, perhaps a pragmatic merchant or a forward-thinking royal official, had a moment of pure genius. They took a small, lumpy piece of electrum, a naturally occurring mix of gold and silver found in the local riverbeds, and they did something revolutionary. They stamped it. With one blow from a die, they impressed an official mark, a symbol of a lion, onto the metal. This was not merely decoration. That stamp was a promise. It was a guarantee from a recognized authority that this little piece of metal contained a specific, reliable weight and purity. In that single act, this forgotten Lydian created the world's first coin, transforming abstract value into a physical object you could hold in your hand. The impact was immediate and profound. Suddenly, trade was not about what you had to swap, but about the universal key you carried in your purse. A coin was a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange all in one. It streamlined commerce to an incredible degree, making transactions fast, fair, and simple. Kings could now collect taxes in a standardized form and pay their soldiers with portable wealth that could be spent anywhere the coin was accepted. For the first time, wealth was not just piles of grain or herds of cattle. It was something that could be accumulated, saved, and carried across continents. This Lydian inventor gave birth to the very concept of money, one of the most powerful and pervasive abstractions in human history. An idea that began with nothing more than a stamped promise on a piece of metal. While the Lydian merchant could carry their wealth in a purse, that wealth was worthless if the ships carrying the goods never arrived. At the bustling port city of Lothal in the Indus Valley, a different kind of genius confronted the rhythm of the sea itself. An anonymous hydraulic engineer looked at the treacherous ebb and flow of the tides and saw a problem waiting to be solved. When the tide was high, ships could easily sail into a harbor basin, but as the water receded, those same ships would be left stranded in the mud, unable to load or unload their precious cargo until the next high tide. This cycle of waiting and wasting valuable time was a major bottleneck for a civilization whose lifeblood was maritime trade. This engineer's solution was nothing short of phenomenal. They designed and oversaw the construction of the world's first known dockyard, a massive brick-lined basin that was connected to the main river by a narrow channel. But the true stroke of genius was the tidal lock gate they integrated into this design. This was a clever wooden barrier that could be opened and closed at will. When the tide was high, the gate would be opened, allowing the deep, high water to flood into the dockyard basin. Then, at the perfect moment, the gate would be shut, trapping that deep water inside. This simple yet brilliant mechanism acted like a bathtub plug, maintaining a constant high water level within the berth regardless of what the ocean tides were doing outside. Ships could now sail in on the high tide, the gate would be closed behind them, and they would remain safely afloat, their hulls suspended in the captured water. This allowed for the efficient, round-the-clock loading and unloading of cargo from Mesopotamian textiles to precious stones. The work never had to stop. This individual's profound understanding of tidal patterns, hydraulics, and structural engineering transformed a chaotic natural process into a controlled, industrial operation. Their dockyard was a machine for commerce, a testament to a mind that could see order in the ocean's chaos and build a haven for trade that would not be rivaled for centuries. That celestial clockwork needed a map, and a Babylonian astronomer provided it. While gazing at the same star-dusted sky as their predecessors, this one individual saw a pattern so grand it would define our relationship with the cosmos for thousands of years. They were the architect of the Zodiac. Their genius was in taking the sun's apparent path across the heavens, known as the ecliptic, and dividing it into 12 equal sections of 30 degrees each. Each section was assigned a specific constellation that the sun appeared to pass through over the course of a year. This was not merely a whimsical way to tell stories about scorpions and archers. It was a brilliant mathematical and observational feat, the creation of the first precise coordinate system for the sky. This gave astronomers a consistent grid, a celestial graph paper, on which they could plot the complex wanderings of the planets with unprecedented accuracy. They could now predict the future positions of Jupiter or Venus, not for horoscopes in the modern sense, but as a way to mark the seasons, to know when the Nile would flood or when to plant the barley. This framework became the indispensable backbone for developing more accurate calendars, for celestial navigation that guided sailors across featureless seas, and for all subsequent astronomical study. The Greeks would later adopt and rename these constellations, but the foundational structure, the 12-fold division of the ecliptic, was the gift of this single, forgotten Mesopotamian mind. They looked up at a chaotic spray of stars and saw an ordered, predictable universe, giving humanity its first reliable map to the heavens. A simple curved line in a brick wall holds one of humanity's most profound engineering secrets. Long before the Romans raised their majestic aqueducts, an unknown Mesopotamian or Egyptian builder was the first to truly master the architectural arch. This was not merely a decorative shape, it was a revolutionary way to manage immense weight. This forgotten genius understood that by arranging bricks or stones in a curved, self-supporting formation, they could redirect the downward force of gravity, transforming it into a powerful outward and downward thrust known as compressive stress. The keystone at the very top of the arch was the crucial piece, locking all the others into place and allowing the entire structure to carry loads that would easily crush a simple flat lintel or beam. Their initial applications were practical and often hidden from view, used to construct incredibly durable underground drains and the robust ceilings of small, windowless storerooms. But the principle they unlocked was monumental. By harnessing this compressive strength, they made it possible to create larger, more open interior spaces, to span wider gaps over rivers with stronger bridges, and to build taller, more stable walls. This single innovation liberated architecture from the constraints of heavy, supporting walls and closely spaced columns. The Romans would later adopt and scale this concept to breathtaking proportions, but the fundamental physics, the very idea of the true arch, belongs to that first anonymous builder who looked at a pile of bricks and saw not just a wall, but a lasting embrace of stone. These 21 minds, scattered across millennia, share a remarkable kinship. They were not daydreamers lost in abstract thought, but practical problem solvers staring down the immediate needs of their communities. The wheel answered the grueling challenge of moving a heavy load. Writing solved the fragility of human memory. Irrigation turned a gamble on the weather into a reliable harvest. Each invention was a direct response to a concrete problem, a way to make life more efficient, more organized, or simply more bearable. Yet their practicality was rooted in a deep, almost intimate understanding of the natural world. The first metallurgists did not just see a green rock, they saw the potential for metal trapped within, waiting for fire to set it free. The shipwright did not just feel the wind, they saw it as an invisible engine to be harnessed. They were masters of material and force, working with the properties of water, stone, copper, and clay as if they were partners in a great creative endeavor. This practical genius flourished in a specific environment, the crossroads of culture. The ideas that shaped our world did not emerge in isolation. They traveled along the same trade routes that carried spices, silks, and precious stones. A concept born in Mesopotamia could find new expression in the Indus Valley. A technique from China could slowly make its way west. These inventors were products of this vibrant, interconnected world, standing on the shoulders of countless anonymous predecessors. Their true brilliance lies in that final, extraordinary leap of insight. While they were shaped by their time and its needs, they alone saw the connection no one else could make. They looked at a muddy riverbank and envisioned a system of canals. They held a lump of wet clay and saw a permanent record. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that human creativity is a universal constant. When faced with the fundamental challenges of existence, the human mind, in any era, has an incredible capacity to observe, to experiment, and to innovate, building a better world one solved problem at a time. Our journey through these 21 lives corrects a map of history that has been drawn for far too long. It reveals a past far richer and more diverse than any single narrative centered on Rome or Greece could ever portray. These pioneers, emerging from the river valleys of Mesopotamia, the mountains of Peru, the plains of China, and the forests of prehistoric Europe, laid the indispensable foundations upon which all later civilizations, including the Romans, would build. Every one of their gifts, from the written word that captures our thoughts to the wheel that moves our world, from the numbers that measure our universe to the arch that supports our structures, remains essential in its evolved form today. By remembering them, we do more than just correct the historical record. We honor the true, collaborative, and global nature of human innovation itself. Progress was never a single torch passed from one empire to the next. It was, and still is, a vast tapestry woven by countless hands across continents and millennia. If this exploration has reshaped your view of the ancient world, We would love to hear which forgotten inventor surprised you most in the comments. Subscribe to continue this journey with us as we keep uncovering the hidden stories that built our modern world.